Beloved, hear me closely, because what I am about to reveal is something most people never pay attention to. Yet it is one of the strongest spiritual warnings God uses to alert His children. Not every smell that drifts through your home comes from the physical world. Some odors are not from your environment at all. They are from the invisible realm, where battles are fought and curses are released. There are moments when your spirit picks up something your natural senses can't explain, and suddenly a strange fragrance, a disturbing odor, or an unexpected scent invades the atmosphere. These smells appear without source, without logic, and without warning, because the enemy uses them as signals, as alarms, as spiritual footprints to announce when dark forces are trying to enter your home. The kingdom of darkness often operates quietly. Witchcraft is almost always hidden, silent, and disguised. But scent, aroma, odor is one of the few things demons cannot fully mask. When curses are activated, when someone mentions your name in an evil ritual, when spells begin to stir, the spiritual pressure around you shifts, and your nose becomes the first witness to what is happening in the unseen world. Beloved, understand this truth. In the Bible, scent has always carried meaning. God used fragrance to represent prayer, holiness, purity, and His divine presence. Incense was a symbol of worship, a bridge between heaven and earth. But the enemy corrupts everything God creates. Just as there is a sweet aroma of Christ, there are foul smells released by unclean spirits. When these odors show up in your home with no physical source, it is not your imagination, it is your spiritual sensitivity awakening. These scents can be warnings of witchcraft monitoring, demonic movement, or curses being set in motion. They can appear suddenly, linger for seconds or minutes, and disappear as quickly as they arrived. They come to disturb peace, to weaken the atmosphere, to announce a spiritual intrusion, or to manipulate the emotions of those inside the home. Some smells come to intimidate, others come to deceive, and some come to signal that a spiritual attack is already in progress. The enemy often releases these odors to test if you are spiritually asleep or spiritually alert. If you ignore the signs, the attack becomes stronger. But if you notice them, if you discern what is happening, and if you respond with prayer and authority, the enemy loses his foothold instantly. These smells are not random, they are not harmless, and they are not meaningless. They are warnings from the spirit realm, signals that something unseen is moving, that someone is speaking your name in darkness, or that forces are gathering against your peace. Your spirit must rise when your senses react. Beloved, what your nose smells, your spirit must not dismiss. What enters your home through scent may be the very sign God is using to alert you that witchcraft is near, and it is time to stand in spiritual authority. In the spiritual realm, smells are far more than simple physical sensations. They are signals, indicators, and spiritual fingerprints that reveal the activity of unseen forces. Demons rarely manifest in clear and obvious ways because their power operates through subtlety, deception, and hidden influence. One of the easiest ways for them to announce their presence or gain access to an environment is through scent. A home that suddenly fills with a strange odor, an unpleasant smell, or even an oddly sweet fragrance can be experiencing a spiritual intrusion that the natural mind tries to dismiss, but the spirit immediately senses. Throughout Scripture, we see how God's presence was often represented by fragrance, holy incense, anointing oil, and the aroma of worship. These were not random. They carried spiritual authority, cleansing power, and heavenly symbolism. Because scent carries spiritual meaning, the enemy has always tried to twist it, imitate it, and use it to manipulate believers who do not yet recognize how the invisible world communicates. Demons use smells as a doorway because scent bypasses logic and goes straight to the heart, the memory, and the atmosphere of a place. A sudden foul smell can disturb the peace of a home instantly. It creates discomfort, spiritual tension, and a feeling that something is not right. This is intentional. Dark forces use odor to unsettle the environment so they can weaken the spiritual shield around the household. When the atmosphere shifts, the mind becomes vulnerable, emotions become unstable, and the home becomes spiritually open. Just like a physical intruder checks for unlocked windows or doors, demons check for spiritual entry points, bitterness, fear, anger, spiritual neglect, and once they find a weakness, they mark their presence through scent before moving in deeper. Many witchcraft practitioners and occult rituals also rely heavily on smell because they understand its power. Smoke, burnt herbs, animal parts, and spiritual mixtures are all used to send spirits into a home. When a curse is released, the energy attached to that ritual can travel and manifest in the form of an unexplained odor. Demons assigned through witchcraft often reveal themselves first through scent as they attempt to adjust the spiritual climate of the space. The smell acts like a spiritual footprint, showing where they entered and what type of attack they intend to launch. Sometimes the odor is sharp and aggressive, announcing a forceful intrusion. Other times it is subtle and deceptive, trying to blend in and make the believer ignore it. These smells can appear in the middle of the night, during prayer, after conflict, when someone you don't trust enters your space, or when you are spiritually drained. They don't follow the patterns of normal physical odors. They appear out of nowhere and disappear just as suddenly. That's because they originate not from your environment, but from the unseen realm. When demons use smells to enter a home, they are testing whether the inhabitants are spiritually awake. If you ignore the scent, the influence grows. But when you recognize it as a spiritual sign, the enemy knows his access is being confronted. The moment the odor enters your home, your discernment must rise, because the smell is never random. It is a warning that something spiritual has crossed the threshold. The sudden scent of rotten eggs or sulfur is one of the most alarming spiritual indicators a person can experience, because this particular odor has long been associated with demonic activity, unclean forces, and spiritual contamination. When this smell enters a home without any logical explanation, no plumbing issue, no gas leak, no spoiled food, it is often a sign that something in the invisible realm is shifting. This odor carries a heaviness, a sharpness, and a harsh quality that immediately disrupts the atmosphere, and the moment it appears, the environment feels different. That is because sulfur is a scent tied to corruption and decay, and when it manifests spiritually, it reveals that the enemy is attempting to contaminate the spiritual environment of the home. The smell is more than unpleasant. It is a message. It tells you that a dark presence has approached, or that a spiritual doorway has been tampered with through curses, rituals, or emotional openings that were unknowingly left exposed. Many believers describe this odor as appearing out of nowhere, staying just long enough to disturb the peace and then vanishing before they can even locate a source. This is because the smell does not originate from the physical world, but from the spiritual activity taking place. When someone speaks evil against you, sends a curse toward your household, or calls your name in witchcraft rituals, the spiritual impact often manifests in the physical realm through odors like sulfur. The smell acts as a spiritual alarm bell, announcing that a curse has been activated or that the enemy is attempting to plant fear, confusion, or oppression. Rotten egg or sulfur odors can also appear when demonic forces attempt to create an atmosphere of heaviness around you, because this smell weakens spiritual sensitivity and tries to make the mind feel unsettled and clouded. This odor can show up in hallways, bedrooms, corners of the house, or even around doors and windows, especially if those areas are spiritually unprotected. Sometimes it settles in places where arguments happened, where emotional pain was felt, or where spiritual neglect has created an opening. Other times it appears during moments when you are praying, worshiping, or resisting temptation, because the enemy is reacting to your spiritual activity. Demonic forces are drawn to brokenness, anger, bitterness, and unconfessed wounds, and the smell of sulfur often reveals that an unclean presence is attempting to gain entry through those emotional cracks. The odor serves as a sign that the spiritual atmosphere around you is being targeted and that a curse may be trying to attach itself to you or your home. In some cases, people notice the sulfur smell right after dreaming of attacks, shadow figures, snakes, or spiritual warfare. This is because the spiritual pressure from the dream realm can follow into the physical realm, and the smell appears as evidence that what happened spiritually was not just imagination. The odor can also manifest after someone visits your home with negative intentions, jealousy, or hidden witchcraft influence. Their presence can leave behind spiritual residue, and sulfur-like smells reveal that something entered with them. When this odor appears, it is a sign that the spiritual environment has been disturbed, that something unseen is drawing near, and that the enemy is attempting to weaken your peace, your clarity, and your home's protection by signaling its presence through one of the most recognizable scents connected to darkness. The scent of burning hair or burning rubber is one of the strongest indicators that spiritual fire has been directed toward your life through witchcraft or intentional demonic activity. This smell carries a distinct sharpness that feels invasive, unsettling, and unnatural, especially when it appears inside a home where nothing is physically burning. There is something deeply symbolic about this odor. Burnt hair represents destruction, identity, and spiritual defilement, while burning rubber symbolizes friction, resistance, and the grinding of one's spiritual path. When this odor suddenly fills a room, hallway, or even lingers near a doorway, it often signals that someone has invoked fire in the spirit realm against you. Many rituals performed in dark practices involve burning objects that represent the target. Names, photos, personal items, written intentions, or symbolic substitutes created specifically to harm the person being targeted. The spiritual energy released during such rituals can travel, and the smell manifests in the natural as evidence of what has been done in the unseen. This odor frequently appears during times when a person is under spiritual attack but is not yet aware of it. It can come during moments of stress, fatigue, emotional vulnerability, or spiritual negligence. When the enemy sees a crack in your armor, he moves quickly. The smell of burning hair or rubber arrives like a signature of that attack, announcing that something is being burned in the spirit realm with the intention of interrupting, weakening, or blocking your progress. It may show up during prayer as a distraction or intimidation tactic. It may drift through the home after a conflict or emotional breakdown, because those moments give the enemy easier access. Or it may come out of nowhere while you are alone, instantly shifting the mood of the room and creating a sensation of heaviness, heat, or pressure. This smell not only affects the atmosphere, but also can bring headaches, dizziness, mental fog, or sudden irritation, because it carries a spiritual weight that clashes with the peace of a believer's home. Witchcraft practitioners often use fire to burn away someone's blessings, favor, or protection. Through their rituals, they symbolically attempt to scorch the spiritual covering that surrounds a person. This burning energy manifests in our world as the scent of something that should not be burning at all. Sometimes the odor is faint and fleeting, like a momentary warning. Other times it is so strong and sudden that it demands your attention. It may appear near objects in your home that hold spiritual significance, such as your bed, prayer area, or the place where you spend most of your emotional energy. When this happens, it is a sign that the attack is not random, but specifically targeted. In many cases, people notice this smell after encountering someone who envies them, resents them, or has hidden anger toward them. Jealousy is a powerful doorway for witchcraft influence, and a person carrying such intentions can leave behind spiritual residue that manifests as burning odors. At other times, the smell comes after an object with negative energy has been brought into the home, such as a gift meant to curse, an item connected to darkness, or something placed intentionally to disrupt the atmosphere. The burning smell acts as a spiritual footprint left behind by the forces that accompanied it. And there are moments when the odor appears right before setbacks, unexpected arguments, sudden emotional heaviness, financial disruption, or blockages that seem to arise out of thin air. That is because the spiritual fire released against you is meant to incinerate something in your life. Your peace, your relationships, your confidence, or your spiritual clarity. Whenever this smell appears, it is a sign that something fiery is being done against you in the invisible realm, and your spirit is being alerted through the unmistakable stench of burning energy that was never meant to be in your home. The sudden scent of something dead, like a decaying animal, rotting flesh, or a decomposing odor, is one of the most disturbing and spiritually charged smells a person can encounter in their home. What makes this odor particularly unsettling is that it often appears in places that are spotless, freshly cleaned, and completely free from any physical cause. This kind of smell does not behave like a natural odor. It seems to rise out of nowhere, hover in the air for moments that feel much longer than they are, and then disappear before you can even begin to search for a source. Whenever this happens, it is almost never a coincidence. The scent of decay is a spiritual warning that something meant for death, destruction, or collapse has been released against your life. It is a sign that the enemy is not merely observing, but actively attempting to interfere with blessings, relationships, health, or the overall spiritual climate of the home. This odor carries a spiritual meaning because decay represents the end of something, an ending that is not ordained by God, but initiated by darkness. When witchcraft is directed toward a person with the intention of destroying what is growing or thriving in their life, the energy of that curse often manifests as the smell of death. It could be aimed at destroying your peace, your finances, your opportunities, or even the unity in your home. People under such attacks sometimes describe experiencing strange setbacks, loss of motivation, or sudden emotional heaviness around the same time they notice this odor. The smell becomes a sign that something in the spirit realm is attempting to suffocate what God has planted in their life. It is as if the enemy is sending a message: I intend to bring ruin. This smell can also reveal that a spiritual presence connected to death or destruction is attempting to enter the environment. The enemy works through symbolism, and a decaying odor is one of his clearest signatures. It often appears in seasons when a person is close to breakthrough, healing, or elevation because the forces working against them want to interrupt, derail, or contaminate what God is bringing forth. The scent may show up near areas of vulnerability, such as the bedroom, because sleep is a spiritual gateway, or the living room, where emotions settle, or near the front door, where entry points exist. Whenever this type of odor appears without cause, it is a sign that something unclean is probing for access, trying to latch onto the atmosphere or latch onto the person spiritually. Many individuals who experience this smell also report feeling spiritually drained, suddenly irritable, or overwhelmed without reason. That is because the odor is not just a smell, it carries spiritual weight and intention. It may show up after someone with harmful jealousy or ill intentions has visited the home. It may appear after receiving an object that carries spiritual contamination. It may even arise after a nightmare involving death, darkness, or confusion, because the energy from the dream realm has spilled into the atmosphere of the home. The enemy uses the scent of decay to weaken the spiritual shield of the believer, hoping the person will overlook the warning and allow spiritual heaviness to settle. Whenever this disturbing odor appears, it signals that the atmosphere is being tampered with, that blessings are being targeted, and that the forces of destruction are attempting to make their presence known through the unmistakable stench of spiritual decay. One of the most deceptive and spiritually confusing odors that can manifest in a home is the sudden scent of unusual perfume or an unnaturally sweet fragrance. Unlike foul or rotten smells that instantly alert the mind to danger, this type of odor often feels pleasant, soft, or strangely comforting at first. Yet spiritually, it is one of the most dangerous. This is because familiar spirits, seductive spirits, and monitoring forces often disguise themselves in sweetness to appear harmless. They mimic gentleness to slip into a home undetected. When a mysterious perfume-like smell appears without any physical source, when no one is wearing fragrance, no air freshener has been used, and no window is open, it is usually a sign that a spiritual presence is attempting to draw close. The enemy uses sweetness the way a hunter uses bait to lower your guard, soften your awareness, and make you believe that nothing harmful is happening. This sweet or perfumed smell can appear in rooms where spiritual sensitivity is already high, bedrooms, prayer spaces, near mirrors, or around doorways where transitions between the physical and spiritual often occur. Many people under attack describe the scent as unfamiliar, not connected to any fragrance they own, and appearing during quiet or vulnerable moments while lying in bed, waking up from sleep, sitting alone, or reflecting on emotional matters. The odor may be floral, sugary, fruity, or even reminiscent of incense, but it always feels foreign, as if it doesn't belong in the home. This is because the smell is not coming from the natural environment, but from a spiritual presence attempting to influence emotions, thoughts, or decisions. Familiar spirits especially use sweet smells to create an atmosphere of subtle seduction. Their goal is not physical seduction, but emotional and spiritual seduction. They attempt to draw your attention, stir your curiosity, or make you feel strangely accompanied. These spirits thrive on attachment. Once they sense an emotional opening, loneliness, confusion, heartbreak, or lack of discernment, they use sweetness to approach gently. Witchcraft spells of manipulation, charm, or influence also use pleasant scents to pull the victim's energy closer. A person performing such rituals may call your name or focus on your image while using incense or sweet-smelling oils. The spiritual residue of those rituals can travel to your environment as a sudden fragrance that seems to float in the air without explanation. The scent may also appear after interacting with someone who carries spiritual influence, someone who is envious, manipulative, or spiritually connected to dark practices. These individuals may bring familiar spirits with them, and once they leave, the sweet odor lingers as a spiritual fingerprint of what followed them into your environment. In other cases, the smell appears right before confusion, temptation, or emotional weakness arises. It comes to soften your defenses so that you don't resist the spiritual assignment being sent against you. Sometimes this scent comes during sleep or just as you are drifting off, Many people report waking up to a sweet smell right before experiencing sleep paralysis, spiritually disturbing dreams, or a sense of being watched. This is because the spirit behind the smell is attempting to enter through the dream realm. A sweet odor is one of its methods of easing into the environment undetected. Unlike the harsh stench of sulfur or decay, the pleasant scent of strange perfume is meant to charm, not frighten. But spiritually, it is often a sign that manipulation, seduction, or monitoring is taking place. Whenever this mysterious fragrance fills a space without cause, it signals that a spiritual presence is attempting to influence the atmosphere, and it must be recognized before it deepens its hold. When these final three toxic spiritual smells begin to invade a person's surroundings, they often do so in subtle and deceptive ways, leaving the individual confused, uneasy, or suddenly restless without understanding why. The fifth smell, the odor of rotting sweetness, is one of the most disturbing because it pretends to be pleasant at first. It may resemble the scent of overripe fruit, burnt sugar, or something artificially fragrant, yet underneath there is an undeniable sense of decay. This smell tends to appear when witchcraft is attempting to manipulate emotions, lure someone into spiritual complacency, or cloud their judgment. People who encounter it often describe feeling strangely drowsy, distracted, or drawn into thoughts and impulses that do not align with their usual character. The sweetness acts like bait, masking the spiritual corruption that hides behind it. And once this fragrance lingers in a home, it creates an atmosphere of tension and spiritual heaviness that grows stronger with time if not addressed. The sixth smell is the sharp metallic odor that resembles blood or rusted iron. This smell is often linked to spiritual battles, conflict, and invisible attacks aimed at draining a person's strength. When this scent shows up unexpectedly, especially when there is no physical source, it may reflect an attempt to weaken someone's determination, intensify arguments within a household, or stir sudden emotional instability. People exposed to this smell may feel physically tired for no reason, become overwhelmed by anxiety, or notice an increase in nightmares or sleep paralysis. The metallic scent acts as a warning that something in the unseen realm is trying to pierce through the person's spiritual defenses. It is a smell that disrupts peace, stirs aggression, and tries to break unity within families or relationships. The longer it remains unnoticed, the more likely it fuels confusion, irritability, and spiritual exhaustion. The seventh and final smell is the foul, suffocating odor that resembles burnt hair, burnt feathers, or scorched fabric. Unlike the other scents, this one carries a heavy, oppressive presence that instantly makes the atmosphere feel thick and unsettling. This smell is often connected to destructive witchcraft assignments designed to sabotage someone's destiny, destroy opportunities, or create sudden roadblocks in areas where progress was developing. People who encounter this scent usually describe a feeling of pressure on their chest, sudden headaches, or a sense of being spiritually choked or restrained. This burnt odor symbolizes spiritual sabotage, attempts to burn bridges, block blessings, or ignite chaos in a person's life. It may appear during times of transition, breakthroughs, or moments when someone is about to step into something meaningful or divinely aligned. The presence of this smell often intensifies when the person is close to a spiritual or personal breakthrough, because dark forces tend to strike hardest when they know someone is on the verge of rising. This scent does not simply irritate the senses. It tries to instill fear, hesitation, and confusion, creating an atmosphere where discouragement becomes easier to accept. Each of these three smells signals a different form of spiritual interference, yet all share one intention: to disrupt, distract, or destroy before a person realizes what is happening, making awareness and discernment crucial as one continues to move forward. As we reach the end of this powerful revelation, it becomes clear that these toxic smells are far more than just strange sensations drifting through the air. They are signals, spiritual warnings, and invisible messengers alerting you that something deeper is moving around you. Many people ignore these signs because they convince themselves it is just their imagination or a passing moment of discomfort. But nothing in the spiritual world happens without meaning. When these scents linger in your environment without any physical cause, it is a sign that unseen forces are trying to disrupt the peace, drain your strength, or place subtle blockages in your path. These odors are not random. They appear at strategic moments, especially when your spirit is awakening, when your destiny is shifting, or when you are rising into a new season that threatens the kingdom of darkness. The more spiritually sensitive you become, the more aware you will be of these unusual signals, because discernment sharpens when your soul is aligned with truth. There are moments when life feels heavier than usual, when the atmosphere in your home feels thick, when your sleep becomes restless, or when tension erupts for no logical reason. These are the moments when many people overlook what their spirit is trying to communicate. Darkness works in silence, and its first goal is always to go unnoticed. It will use smells, sensations, and environmental changes to test whether you are spiritually asleep or awake. When these odors begin to intrude, it is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you. Your spirit is not powerless. You were never meant to live unaware or vulnerable to unseen attacks. You were given the ability to sense, discern, resist, and overcome. Awareness is the first weapon, and once you recognize these signs, the enemy loses the advantage of secrecy. The more you acknowledge what is happening, the stronger your spiritual authority becomes. Many people go through life carrying burdens that were never theirs, battling invisible heaviness they cannot explain, or facing sudden setbacks that appear out of nowhere. These toxic scents reveal what has been lurking behind the scenes, influencing emotions, twisting atmospheres, and attempting to weaken faith. But the moment you stand in awareness, everything begins to shift. These odors do not appear to defeat you. They appear to warn you so you can rise above them. They show you that a spiritual battle is present, but they also remind you that you are not alone in that battle. You are being prepared, sharpened, and strengthened for a higher level of spiritual clarity. This closing is not just the end of a message, it is the beginning of your awakening. From this point forward, you will no longer overlook the signs that once confused you. You will no longer dismiss the strange heaviness that settles in the air. You will no longer doubt your discernment or question your intuition. Your awareness has been activated, your vision expanded, and your spirit awakened to realities that were once hidden. You now carry the understanding needed to protect your peace, guard your home, and move with confidence through every spiritual season.